that bill and the computers.
Really short. Dan.
Call meeting to order. It's July 27th, 8:30 a.m. Kevin, Dan, anyone present?
Kevin and Dan.
Probably up first, huh?
Okay. Well, what you have in front of you is everything thus far, which is, for today, what we'll do is I'll talk first, I'll show you mine. If you just go to the Monday 727 tab, everything we're going to look at today is in there. So it'll be myself, Bob Yergler, Mindy, Dale Strow will be here around 9:15. Greg Murphy is already here. He'll be here at 9:30. And Bill Cheatham will be here at 9:45. So should be a relatively short day. Joel was scheduled for the 10:15 slot, but he's got a meeting in Springfield today, so he's moved till tomorrow. So today should be short. Tomorrow will be a bit of a longer day. Okay?
Simple.
So if you go to the Monday tab, and that's my budget right in front there, we can talk through what I've done. I did put in a 2% raise for the two non-union people, would be myself and Amanda. It totals about, for the two of us, about $2,200 then is the increase split between the two of us. Mary Ann is next at the deputy clerk salary, and that is, I use the amount of the tentative AFSCME union agreement, so hopefully that will pass. I guess a word of explanation, I do that for all the departments. Before they get their worksheets, what they get is a lot of what you see here, everything from 2011 over to the 2015 forecast. And then their payroll is on, there's always a second sheet, and behind each one of your spreadsheets, you'll see, not that one, mine is on the next page, I have something else in there, but here it is, would be my staff, those three people. And what I show there is actual the itemization of what we're paid this year, and then the increase for next year, the hourly rate if that's applicable. Does that? And you'll see this on every worksheet of everyone we go through. So what I've already done before the spreadsheets go out to any of the department heads and elected officials, that's done. And so what I used as a premise for AFSCME was that agreement. The FOP and probation, I used their union agreement. So that's already set. So what you'll see as we go through some of the other people, it's not very noticeable in mine because my staff is so small, but especially like for sheriff, there'll be, I actually bold the only ones he can change so that it's a little noticeable for him. The ones defined by contract, the amounts are already in there, so that part is done. So there's not a lot of room for changing that. Okay? So that's Mary Ann's amount there on the, going back to my budget on the third line. That is according to the tentative union agreement there. Office expense is according to, we were at $3,500 for my budget for this year. That includes our copier lease and the maintenance for the copier. I increased it to $3,800 because the quote we originally got for maintenance on the copier was $81 a quarter, and based on the number of copies that we run, our actual is actually $179 a quarter, so $2,500 a year. So it's of the $3,800 in office supplies, $2,500 is the lease of the copier and the maintenance of the copier pays for the copier machine. Computer and copy paper supply, that's at $35.40. That's flat. We're having to get a little creative with that line. Paper costs have gone up. This is all the copier paper for this whole building. So we pay for we just bring it in, we pay for it out of this budget. We leave it stored in either a storage room or the county board office. And then when someone wants a case, they come down and get a key from us and then go get whatever they need. Copier paper prices really increased a lot this year, so what we did is actually buy a pallet load of 40 cases and brought it in, and we got a cheaper price that way, and then we'll continue to do that and hopefully offset and be able to negotiate. We did a little negotiating with a vendor here in town compared to somebody online, trying to get the best price we could. So that's that. Systems expense is the next line. You'll see that goes from, well, $10,800 is our forecast. We had $17,000 budget, but it's $1,300, and it's just a new computer for me. My computer is 5 years old. When I got here, I had one, and then after Tom left, we took a laptop of Tom's, and I took over that, use of that, but that is 5 years old. So it's time to replace that. The mileage and education and dues, that's, both of those are for my training and continuing education that I need to keep up with at least 30 hours a year. So most of what I do, I've been doing some online, but they're very expensive. The classes, to take a one-day class is usually $600 to $700. So. Software contracts and licenses, I itemize that because that's so much detail, and it's getting to be such a big number. And it looks like I didn't feed that correctly, so that is, the number in there of 41 isn't right. It is now $50,395. And you can see the itemization. The biggest thing is DevNet is $23,750 that we pay every year for that. Sage or Avila, our financial reporting, that is increasing. So that's about $7,000 is what I'm estimating. It was $64.30 this year, and it keeps going up. Grant management is a piece of that we do that for the health department for their grants. That was $900 this year. I put in $1,000, thinking maybe it's going to increase. That MS Server 2013 support for $58.31, that's on server in the back room. There was a 3-year agreement that we signed when we put in the big server to pay for that license, that operating software license, and they billed us in 3 chunks. This is the 3rd year. So that should go away next year for FY17, but it's $58.31 for this year. Let's see, what are the other ones? And then Shelter Pro is new at $2,000. That's the new dog licensing software that'll be installed this year.
Is that a one-time expense or is that yearly?
No, that'll be yearly. Yeah. Right. Now, just a word of explanation. The increases, you can see there's a number 2, a number 5, a number 6. See them listed down in this section on software licenses?
Yeah.
2, 5, 6. That comes from this second sheet. If you turn the page, this was a recommendation from AreaWise. Did I not give you that one? To the IT committee for what we should do moving forward. The IT committee had said, you know, we've got this big investment in IT that we've done. Russell, you were there, so what are the things we should do now? And these are the things they said. Now, the first thing they said, the new server for highway, they're paying that out of highway funds, so that's not in my department. But these other things, all the things with the X's by them, I added to my department. So either in account 65550 for software contracts, that's number 2, number 5, and number 6, and you can see it over here. I reference it over here. Make sense? And then over in service contracts, there's 2 of them, the number 2 and number 7 I added. That's really, it's all ongoing. Everything they recommended this year has to do with ongoing, like patch management, service management, that kind of activities. No real hardware, which kind of makes sense. There was one other thing they recommended, and you can see that on the second page, and that was this strongly recommended in there, that whole backup system and redundancy in the courthouse for everything we have over here, and that's their recommendation or their thought on that was $45,000, and the IT committee chose not to pursue that at this time. But everything else in this department comes right from there. The service contract, that is the amount that we're paying area-wide, and it is creeping up every year, and part of it is taking on health department. That's kind of, it's a lot of service time for them, quite frankly. They have a lot of service calls. So there's that, and then there's these 2 down here at the bottom, the $7,200 and $5,500, so you've got $12,700 are of that, of the $49,700 is the recommendations from area-wide. Maintenance and repairs, that was $20,000 this year. I'm not quite sure why it was such a large number, but it's not a run rate. I think at the time that was a recommendation from the IT committee last year. They were concerned about what if one of these things, you know, pieces of equipment fails or something, that we should have a larger number in there. I put $1,500 in there for next year. And then contingent $1,500. We haven't needed the contingent since 2012, but again, it was really more related to the IT than anything. And I have to be honest with you, I'm really at a point where I'm starting to look at numbers and the way this all rolls up, and I have a lot of concerns about being able to afford this. I just, the numbers aren't looking good at this point from where I'm at right now. So, anyway, there it is. Questions? Okay. Oh, and then if you flip over, the last page of mine is that IT department, IT Systems Fund. It's a separate fund. It's the next page, Russell, the next page over. Last page. Yeah. Next. Yeah. And you can see there's nothing at all budgeted in there. We've historically put in, that's where we put in like these big projects that we did, and what we're talking about now is not some big hardware project, it's really ongoing issues, so I didn't put anything in there. I didn't budget any of the things in that department. I budgeted it all just within my own department.
Any more questions for Anita?
Okay.
Bob, I'll pick you up.
What?
$10 revenue. Information.
Interest? Yeah, interest.
Pretty straightforward. With the help of Anita, we decided to kind of combine zoning and assessment. We left the 420 and 310 in there for now, because you'll see duplication, you'll see office expense twice, you'll see publications twice, mileage and travel twice. I'm not sure if we want to keep those separate forever, or if we want to, or for simplicity, combine them and just having managed everything all together. I don't, but for comparison's sake, at the initial, we're doing this for the first time, we thought it'd be best to keep them separate for now to see where we are with the two combined departments rather than having it all thrown into one line item and then trying to figure it out mentally, which goes to assessment, which goes to zoning. So, department head salary, I just asked for what the elected officials are going to get next coming year. Chief deputy, Peg, I asked just for $1,000 flat. Peg planning on retiring at the end of in the fall, next fall, not a year from September or October. That's her plan at this point. That's on the horizon. Coming up, obviously, needed to just explain the deputy clerk salary line with the proposed union contract. Per diem, zoning, per diem, that's the zoning board of appeals. I put 2,800 there. I was kind of, don't know, it's hard to, that's not a full year. Say they have a zoning board of appeals hearing every month, it'd be substantially higher than the 2,800. We don't have that, but to guess how many we're going to have in the course of the year, I just put that in there. That's a flexible number. It always seems to, as you can look in the history, 2012, 1150, 13, 1414, and it's projected out to 1750 this year, so it bounces around pretty substantially. Inspection zoning, Gloria budgeted 18,650 last year. I dropped it to 17,500. Building permits are down in general, so I would assume inspections correlate accordingly. Office expense, that first one is mine. It's 8. It was the same as we budgeted for 15, and that includes the service contract with the copy machine. That's why I bumped up that last year from 6,800 to it was 65, I think, and we only use actual 50, and then we bumped it to 8 for the copy machine. Zoning, office expense, I dropped it a little bit to 33 at this point. Trying to toe the line on stuff. They were buying some stuff that I don't think was necessary. So I'm still trying to figure that out, what to get rid of, what we have to have and what we don't need, and what we can share, and with both departments being together. Tax map services, I left at $28,000. That's the Bruce Harris monthly bill for doing our splits and combined. It's obviously, as you can see, the projected forecast for 15 is 22.8, but that's based on the per month average, and we're hitting it hard right now because we sent a lot of our splits in just recently, so that next bill will probably be substantially larger. So that will get closer to the 28,000 than the 22.8 is saying. Planning map update zoning, that's 0 because with GIS coming online, zoning doesn't need a new set of maps anymore, so we did away with that. Obviously, quadrennial assessment is no longer. Publications assessment, that's the same. We do that quarterly. We split our publications up in quarters now instead of having them every 4 years, having a $28,000 bill. Publication zoning, I left that a little bit less because of obviously the zoning board of appeals stuff is down and our publications, our legal notices line would go down. Mileage and travel assessment. In the past, I've never charged for travel to meetings that I go to and stuff for my organizations and assessment stuff. Just something I chose to do personally. I will keep that policy the same. Mileage and travel zoning. That's more of the the mileage that the inspectors, you pay the inspectors, not what you pay me. So what they get paid on per diem cost, and then also they get mileage. So that's where that comes from.
That was a new change last year, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
We put that in last year, mid-year.
They chose choose between mileage and per diem rather than paying. What was the other option? I can't remember. Board of Appeals travel, that's just a per diem, like they get mileage too, just like everybody else. It comes to a meeting plus their per diem. Education and dues assessment, that's required for me to stay, to hold my position with the assessment. I have to take so many hours per year. I do get one lodging free because I'm a member of the IPAI board, so I get lodged for the big spring conference for free, but we do have to pay for the class. And the dues, I have to maintain my dues with my organization. Education and dues zoning, Gloria used to go to a lot of stuff. I've been trying to check into what's necessary, what's required, and what's not required. At this point, I don't see myself going too much. I just don't have the time. Would I like to learn some more about it? Probably, but I just don't have the time to be on enough the way it is with other stuff. And then the service contract, the 15.5 in the budget for 15. I don't know if anybody remember me talking about it prior meetings. We did not spend that money this year on that CAM assistant for commercial. Me and Kyle had talked but first off, when the governor made his proposed budget, that was about the time that I was about ready to sign that contract, and I talked to Kyle, and me and him talked about it for a while, and we decided it wasn't necessary to spend that money at this point. And then also since then, I've realized with zoning, I don't have the time to use it anyway. It would have been a really bad investment for us as far as my time is concerned at this point. Zoning's taking up substantially much more time of my time than I thought it would in the outset. Hopefully that'll change over time as I get a chance to train the staff a little bit more and get them up to speed. But right now, zoning is taking a bit more time than I would care to admit to at this point. So if you look at comparisons, in 14 actual, that included Gloria's salary and Deb's salary, but no service contract, which is almost $283,000. In 15, Gloria's obviously wasn't there, but Deb still was, but that 15.5 service contract was there. It made it $288,000. And my proposed budget combined with no two salaries gone and changes at $245,000. So that's basically the assessment and zoning combined going forward at this point. Board review, pretty much status quo. Salaries I left the same. Office expense, I dropped a little bit because they're just not, the publication stuff is not as required as it used to be by law. And miles and travel I left the same because they're the same board of review members and they still have to travel the same amount of miles. And then the GIS fund, we budget $108,000 in income from recording fees. The projection is it's about 80. Recordings are down, just not as much activity right now in the market. So that recordings go down. Obviously that would reflect income for the GIS fund there. So I don't see a major influx, especially since with the farm economy the way it's going. A lot of the recordings is land sales, farmland sales. I don't know if a bunch of farmers are going to be in a position to buy a lot of land this coming year with no crops in a lot of areas, just getting their payments and their insurance and their and that kind of thing. So I see that maybe even popping even more going forward. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Anybody have any questions for me?
That's working out pretty good. Might be a little challenging.
Well, and just a totally, when you talk about time and we start talking about revenue, I don't even know when that's scheduled.
Thursday.
Thursday is revenue.
Or Wednesday.
Wednesday?
Sorry.
First thing Wednesday, or?
I think, hang on. Well, no, it'll start about 9.
So, I mean, I guess it's part of revenue with building permits and obviously tax, your real estate taxes, but as of right now, with the flood, the governor has not signed any disaster declarations for the village, city of Watseka. So technically, I'm not required by law to do any reassessment. But I think there'll be a need to do some. Damage is damage. I don't care how you cut it, whether you're required to do it or not required to do it. People are not living in their homes because of high water again. And I have to take a wait-and-see attitude to see what the city's going to do, because a lot of these homes were damaged in 08. Also, now again, already had one person call that said he was able not to elevate his house in 08, but he believes he's going to have to, and his wife actually wants to elevate their home this time. And stuff like that's going to happen, and we got to play this out the rest of the year and see how it plays out, and that will definitely affect assessment. Not in a huge way, proportionally wise, but it will still affect assessment. So that's what's on the docket coming up this fall too. So, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Are these in the same order as what you had? Okay. The treasurer's office budget is pretty much self-explanatory. Anita, unless you want to explain the salary on, you'll see the asterisk down at the bottom of the sheet. The elected officials get a stipend from the state, and Anita went ahead and put in the budget on the salary, $2,500 for employee taxes. My salary actually for 2016 is $54,500, but there's also the $2,500 added into it.
Yeah.
That shows the $57,000. I added $1,000 for my chief deputy salary. The deputy clerk salary actually will be less because I'll be losing an employee to animal control. And office expense I left the same as the current year. Any questions on that one?
So the salary line includes the stipend.
Correct. Postage?
So if that,
I'm sorry.
so just for interesting, so if the state removes the stipend, and since it's budgeted, so they still get it.
No.
No.
Okay.
Just because, no.
That's
Just because-
because,
Just because it's budgeted doesn't mean you have to spend it.
Oh, I thought when you...
But
gave
in
a-
order to spend it, it has to be budgeted.
I thought when you gave a department head a budget, he could spend that budget.
Well,
Or
that's
she,
true.
or whatever.
She could.
Right, okay, just...
She could. If you're concerned about that, we can
No, I'm
move
not
all those
concerned about it. I'm
taxes
just
to like
trying-
county board or something.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right, we could.
Just trying to...
Right. But my issue was this, in the past, first off, the taxes have to be paid. These are the employee share of taxes.
Right.
Not the employer share. The employer share goes into like the FICA fund and the IMRF fund. That gets paid out of those zero levy funds. And historically, those employee taxes got paid there too, except that's not the correct use of what those zero levy funds are for. Those are for the employer taxes. So I felt uncomfortable about that. So last year I started budgeting them in the department, and then when the stipends come through and we process those and pay the employee taxes, then I just budgeted them in their departments and paid them out of their department.
Yeah. And I do think it's a good idea when you look at payroll dollars, you need them one place, because there's a lot of things, a lot of expenses with payroll dollars, so if you
Right.
start moving them around, you're kind of, whoa.
Right, right. Right.
Okay. Postage. I increased it to 52 $2,000. I'm really not sure that that's going to be enough for next year. We've generally kept it low, but there'll be 2 elections next year. Mail tax bills this year was about $1,000 higher than the year before, so you may want to consider increasing that, leaving it the same, keeping an eye on it. In the maintenance, I increased $700 on the machine. That includes the machine here and also at the courthouse. That is 2 machines for the maintenance. And the postage. That is both buildings.
That postage for everybody or just your office?
For everybody.
Everybody on the
Both buildings, the courthouse building and here.
Except Public Health actually reimburses.
Right.
They keep track of whatever they mail, and then we do a journal entry to credit this line back, this postage line back, and then charge them.
That works out pretty good, huh?
It takes a lot of work. There's a lot of work involved with the health department. Copy paper, charging for a case here, a case there, postage, 3 pieces here per month. It's a lot of work.
Phone wire.
Yeah. Okay. County treasurer automation. I've pretty much kept that the same. I'm usually low on my revenue side. I put it low and we get a little bit more, but it usually washes out. For the expenses, I kept that the same. I'm still verifying my maintenance contracts on my machines at that 4132 that I have listed in there. The automation expenses, that's just kind of, this year we replaced one of the public terminals is all we did. That was at 1,053, and I have another 2,500 in there for next year in case something comes up that we need to purchase. But
You do have one computer that area-wide did target and say that
Yeah.
it's 4 years old and should
Yeah.
be replaced.
yeah, we'll have to narrow that down to which one that is.
Yep,
Kind of go from there.
yep.
And my transfer to the general fund. The trust fund, that is court order payment. We haven't had any in quite some time, so kept that the same as last year, a little bit of interest on it.
Court order, like court ordered you to pay a tax bill for something?
No, it's usually bond that's been put up, or if there's an estate that's left a little bit of funds in it, something like that, and then somebody comes forward to claim it. I'm thinking that we've had one since I've been here, since 2006, and that was an unknown heir is what it was, a distant relative knew of something sitting there. Yeah.
So that's Sheldon.
No. It was just a little bit of money, a couple $100 or something. The indemnity fund, the revenue comes from that off of the tax sale. So it does not show up until November at the end of the year. And I lowered that a little bit because, I'm hoping that we don't have as many unpaid tax bills that we have to take to the tax sale. But
How are they running so far? Or can you tell?
pretty good, and again, people are paying both installments, because the interest rate isn't much of anything, and so everybody's paying both installments when they're up, The revolving loan, I want you to note on that, for the gathering, they're going to have a balloon balance in April of 2016. And it's 25.4. However, they have paid an extra $100 with every payment except for one so far. So that is not taken in that 25.4, just so you know that.
It's the net remaining on their
Right. So the amounts I have put in there are their monthly payment up until that April date. Okay? I didn't do anything on the other one. I just left it. Okay. And then the sale and air fund, again, we get that money in November after the tax sale in October. And the payments that come out of there are ones that, it goes through the tax sale, and then the taxpayer goes to the piece of property, and the house has been destroyed or abandoned or burned or whatever, and then they go to court, and the judge signs off for sale and air, and then we have to reimburse the taxpayer on that. That's okay. Tax redemption fund, which is the Ballinger fund. I know that the board just did 3 tax deeds this month at the board meeting, and I don't believe those funds have been transferred yet, just so you know that. But that's what that fund is. So it's always just kind of a guess. You know, we might get something, they may sell something during the year, they may not. So.
But we should put in a budget for the expenses for Ballinger, right? Should we put $6,000 in there going out in the expense line? That's that miscellaneous?
Yeah, historically, they've always done 0, not knowing, but...
Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
not right. So let's do it. Can we do it?
That seems...
What do you want?
3.
3? Okay.
That looks low. If you take the average,
Okay.
Okay.
this up.
And then
Started anyway.
Right.
county redemption, $50 in interest again. That's forfeited taxes or bankruptcies. If there's court-ordered bankruptcies, and if we do get some money, that goes in there. So that's a shot in the dark, too. What that is. And finally, mobile home tax. Budgeted $30,000 again. We're getting them cleaned up and off the books. There's less mobile homes out there, for one thing. And there's some that have had several years of taxes on them, and if the piece of land sells, they have to clear up those old taxes, and yeah, so.
How much is it average per unit? What would be?
Per mobile home,
Yeah.
it varies. It can be a $32 tax bill or a $132 tax bill. It varies a great deal.
69.
I can understand it, there's a lot of variation in
Yeah.
value of mobile
Yeah.
home
None of the bills are really high though, Charlie.
too. Doesn't sound like it.
Yeah.
For the amount of effort it takes to question.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When I go to treasurer's conferences, that, you know, when the word mobile home is uttered, everybody,
It disappeared before the
Yeah.
tax bill was ever paid.
Maybe some of them floated away recently.
Yeah.
okay?
Good excuse anyway.
Thanks.
They don't want to land in Dale? Sometimes they don't.
Thank you.
More like that.
Good morning, Dave.
Good morning. How's everybody doing?
It's a beautiful day. We're back to tomatoes.
So, I think I've ended in my sheet that the public defender's budget is extremely simple. It's just the salaries of myself and the assistant public defender. For history, years and years ago, that there was part of that, there was for the overhead portion of the office overhead of the public defender. That was later distributed into salary. But
out of your own office, don't you? You work out of your own office? That's what I thought, yeah.
I have my own office, and so does Mike, and we pay all those office expenses. Secretaries and rent and insurance and everything else. Matter of fact, at this point, the overhead of my private office is greater than the public figure salary. It has now gone up. So you pay sales tax on your ink pens that way too. You pay sales tax on your pencils. That's true.
Sales tax on what?
You don't get a government exemption.
Where? They've been exempt.
Yeah.
Right. Now you take other forms of income though, outside of public defender?
Indeed, it's a part-time position.
All right, that's what I'm trying to get at, yeah.
There is
And you take on stuff when we have cases available, right?
It is a, I do have a private practice, as with Mr. Sable. However, PD stuff is not very much people's business. And my predecessor resigned, Mr. Thompson, he said that you ought to do this, make this a full-time position. And indeed, it probably does take more than half of the time. So, a little bit more history way back. Budgets are always a crisis, and the major thing back in 08, 07, 7, 8 years ago, and I know the other county employees complain they haven't had a raise in 7 or 8 years. We actually had both lost $5,000 to cuts that year. So it has never been restored.
Yeah, they have. Well, 2,000 of which has been restored.
Last year, I was getting to that, but thanks for the reminder. But I hadn't forgotten, and thank you. Last year, we received $1,000, $20 a week of that back. And thank you for thanking us. But nevertheless, that is still a $4,000 deficit from what it was 7 years ago. All the office expenses go more and more than 100%. And so I would suggest we are one of the most underpaid and get more bang for the buck here than anywhere else. We would certainly appreciate further consideration and some increase here. Thank you. Sound clear? Yep. Thank you much for your consideration, y'all.
Thanks for answering my question.
Thanks for your interest.
Okay, the next person is Greg Murphy. I know he's here, but we're running 15 minutes early. You want me to go chase him down, or do you want to take a little break? What would you like to do?
We could take a
5-minute break, and I'll go look for Greg.
What deal was?
Well,
Anything?
well, yeah.
10% raise.
10%, $8,000, 10%.
Yeah.
He was shutting down.
Yeah,
He
it's
turned
already
my
camped.
Okay. Recess.
Recess is over. Craig, vacation is too. You're up. How was it?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Don't know if I necessarily know what to expect at these, but I did send Anita a copy of the budget that we had shared with the Joint Ed Committee.
And they all have a copy.
If you have that. In short, the budget is showing about a $13,000 decrease over last year. From our office standpoint, what that is contraction, down to about as far as we can go. So we reduced truant officers, we reduced secretarial staff, and we capitalized on our retirement of a long time with people. So at this point, we're able to come in with those budget numbers. Don't know how much detail you want. The things that are included in this budget are simply the items that are required in code. So the things that we work with are teacher licensure, GEDs, records, bus driver training, truancy, and then we have finance and technology support. And those are the only components that
The tech coordinator is only 20,000 this year, and it's down to .6, so is he being funded somewhere else too? Okay.
What we try to do is dovetail our grants.
Okay.
So when we pull in grants, anytime that we can, and we were lucky enough to pull in a rather large grant for East Central Illinois. And so some of his time is being used to support the larger grant, so that allows us to reduce the cost of the county budget that way. And then just our standpoint on budget, anytime we can reduce, so we're always looking for other funding sources, either grants, contracts with the state, and what we will traditionally do is when we pull those in, it will reduce the amount of the county budget. So traditionally, up until last year was the only year that we had return money to the county. So questions that you're looking down through? Yeah, 24% for Iroquois County and 76% for Pinckney.
So where this comes out of is the general fund in the other department, department number 615, which we'll talk about on Wednesday. But the line there this year is at 87,895. The prior year 93,519. 2013 was 91,314. In 2012, 83,057. So it is less than what it's been in 5 years. Questions? And the coroner is not here yet, so we're going to need to wait again. You look at it. Well, we're going to look at coroner next. But look at autopsies. Our pace is 43.7. Last year was 33,000, so we potentially have a $15,000 problem in that one line. Then if we go, I think tomorrow or Wednesday is court. Wednesday, first thing is court. That's really noticeable on special attorney hire. Our pacing at $61,000 for the current year. And we have budgeted $20,000. And that's our whole contingency, right there. So, that's a concern. Right. So what it leads you to believe is that you almost have to budget a worst case scenario so that you've got the money there. Right. So then you have to hire a guardian ad litem to speak to the child, and then if you get a group in a room of 6, each of them, they can have a train, they each have to have their own time. So, those things all impact revenue and expenses.
I think that just the murder trials will end up with a whole bunch of... Yeah, because... Yeah, for...
When we have to have diversity, not only do we have to have crime cases, we have a public defender, we have sexual violence, we have to have a video, and then we have to have the experts for Jimmy Stein, for such as example, to review the transcript analysis, and then we have to have the experts to rebut the report. You know, we have to take those aspects further, plus then we have the jury cost. I think
What's your solution for the problem? I knew the problem.
And Kinzer is going to talk about that during his time, because we talked on...
I don't remember asking.
Right. I mean, the judges really watch their budget. They get their budgets, everybody gets their budget versus actual every month. So, but they really watch that, and with the increase in next year, what's going to happen by state law, the amount of juror fees goes from $25 to $50 a day. That's state law. And he'll talk about what they're going to do to offset that expense so that we don't see increased costs coming here. But that's all part of all of our issues. When it happens in one department, it hurts everybody, because then we just don't have enough room anymore. When you think about how close we came to our budget last year, we have no room for error. We don't have, I remember when I started here 3 years ago, everybody said, oh, there was a lot of cushion in the numbers, in the revenue numbers. Our revenue came in was way under budgeted and whatever. We're very, very tight. Very tight. There's not room for error, or one of these things like a murder or special attorney hire to come through, and it creates a big problem.
So therefore, we want to keep the odd
Bill, you're up.
Yeah, we're ready, Bill.
Well, I think,
Everyone has a copy of everything you gave me.
Okay.
But I didn't make you a copy. Do you want my copy?
No, you share with Sean. There's nothing really, I mean, like Anita says, the only thing that is the autopsies, there's 1 year we went completely, we were extremely high. The next 2 years, we were under budget in that line item. This year, we're going to go over. I mean, it's kind of like asking how many times you're going to scoop snow this winter. It's just hard to tell. I mean,
But talk about the fees. We talked about that some, right?
The fees are going up. More fees will go up. Kankakee County's hurting for revenue because of the financial crunch. So I imagine my board fees are going to go up. We haven't been told by the pathologist yet. The $1,075 for their fees. I imagine they'll probably go up to $1,100. Well, I haven't heard from them yet. Our testing for blood work, things like that, that's going up to $200. It's $185 right now for us. So, that line item.
All one line item.
All one line item, right?
Well, it's just that line item.
That autopsy line?
Yeah, that's the line item.
So it's just more than 4 autopsies in that line.
Right. Like I got called earlier this week over to Sheldon, had a gentleman that was on a golf cart that rolled over on top of him. I was thinking maybe I may not, I'm trying to, maybe I'm not going to post this guy when I found out he's a federal parolee. Got just, they won't tell you what he's on parole for through the feds, but, this retaliation, so we got to try to do an autopsy, just make sure that this wasn't something more than a guy rolled over on his golf cart. So anyway, I mean, one thing that we're seeing a lot of in this area is prescription overdoses. I mean,
people that are abusing their medication. You know, that a lot of people don't have doctors. They're in their late 40s, not going to doctors, come up fine dead, you know, so it's a problem in the area. Not saying can't get yearbooks, and it's just, I don't know if people are not working, they don't have insurance,
So they're not taking their medication, is that what you're saying?
they're over medicated. There's a lot of people in this area that are addicted to prescription medication. And I've even talked to some of the doctors, you know, they see it, it's just, you know, even through the emergency room, there's a doctor that when his car's there, visits at the hospital go up to the emergency room for pain medication, things like that. So it's what we see. So anyway, but I mean, you know, and those are things that we have to autopsy, you know, to find out what happened. But anyway, but that's my only line item that we are probably going to go over. Now the nice thing is in my automation fund, I've got the money there that, you know, I've got $10,000 in that automation fund. I could put some of that money towards the autopsy line item. One thing that I'm trying to do, I want to keep some money in that because in probably 4 or 5 years, I want to take care of my office, buying a new van because, you know, the one that I'm driving now is brand new, but in 5 years or so, it probably will need to be replaced. And if I could do that through my own office instead of coming to the board asking for money, so that's what that money is projected. We get about $5,000 a year from the cremation permit, and that's where that money comes from in that automation fund. One other thing, we've got $4,000 what we got from a grant from death certificate surcharge. That's there too.
That's on the last page. If you guys want to flip over to Fund 390. Yep. Next page, Charlie. Turn the page again. Yep, there you go.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What is a cremation fee? How's that?
Everyone that is cremated that dies in Iroquois County, they have to get a $50 permit from the coroner's office. We have to sign off that it's okay to do the cremation, and the state has set a fee of $50. So every time someone is cremated that has died here in Iroquois County, $50 goes into that automation fund, and that's where that money comes from.
Do you have some reason not to provide, issue it then? I mean,
there are some reasons. We have run into some situations where
well, one I could think of is somebody demanded the body remain intact for a certain length of time in order for...
The only time I might waive a fee is, let's say, and this has happened, so I'll use this. We had a death over at Gilman Nursing Home, and they didn't have the funds for cremation. Finally, we got a funeral home that they did it for $400. I waived the $50 cremation fee. I'd rather waive $50 than come back on the county to pay for the cremation, which that's going to cost us $375. So there has been a few times that I've waived that cremation fee because there's a funeral home that's doing us a favor by reducing their fees and going ahead and doing the cremation. So I waived the $50. No. And that's one thing that's supposedly is not budgeted. Is state is not for the 2016 is not going to pay for public aid funerals or people that don't have the funds. So that's why the funeral homes are starting to kind of negotiate with some people to come up with $500 just to so if they're going to cut their fees, I'll waive the $50 cremation fee, so we won't have to pay the $375 to do it ourselves. So,
And then are there limits on the automation funds and how it can be spent?
automation fund is anything that, we can do that on anything that helps our office. It can be personnel, it can be on supplies, it can be on, anything that it takes to run our office. Now, the death certificate surcharge fund is more for supplies, computers, equipment, things like that.
So what do you use that for, like this year?
Well, like this year, I'm going to buy some gear for the guys, rain gear. We had a case where we had a guy that burned out the fire. We went in there in the hot coals and stuff like that to retrieve what we could get. And, there was still hot ash and stuff like that. And I want to have in our van, we try to carry, we want to carry some fire boots, which, I'm going to purchase some fire boots, rain gear, stuff like that. That we can keep in our, we've got some fire coats, we've got some, state police when we go on an accident, and we got to have, the line green to identify if we've got those things, and we carry the body bags, stuff like that. One thing that Kankakee County is doing right now, we're trying to find some government, the government purchased body bags for to the military, for the veterans and things during the war. After a 3-year period, they let them go, and we can pick them up cheaply. So that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to see if we can find some of those. So we're trying to do as much as we can as far as cutting the cost, but unfortunately the only one that can buy that is the autopsy.
Right.
So.
And it looks like there's not been an increase in your assistant coroners.
There haven't. They haven't been raised ever since I've been elected. And the same thing, even before I was even appointed. And I think it's been at $6,000 ever since I was a deputy. But they don't. I don't want to address that at this time. I'm going to leave it at that at this time. But eventually, maybe down the road, look at something for them guys. I take calls all the time, and when I'm home, it's the only time I ask them to take calls. So they're not on a lot, but yet, when you have someone, there's going to be, the end of the month, I'll be gone 4 days for a conference training down in Fairview Heights. So that's, one time that they have to take call, and they do have the van. It'll be here, so it's not like they use their personal vehicle or anything like that, but it's just more time that they have to be confined on call 24/7 on the phone. So anyway, it's been like that for 20 years or so, so I think it's probably maybe down the road bump them up just a little bit. Other than that, any questions?
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
That is everybody I have scheduled for today. Tomorrow's a longer day. There's, you can see the maintenance department here in this building, the state's attorney, the sheriff, which are all bigger requests, county clerk, ESDA, animal control, and highway. I'm also working on for you within maybe tomorrow and maybe Wednesday would be some analysis of the payroll requests, the increases, and how those compare across the board, so that we can do a little bit of analysis on that. In the meantime, if you want to look through, all the sheets that I have thus far are in your notebook. The only one I'm missing of the departments is ESDA. I didn't receive that one ahead. And then the levy funds, the zero levy funds at the very back. I I think I have most of those. I want to go through those again. They might change a little bit. Those are unemployment, workers' comp, liability insurance, IMRF, FICA. I think that's it. IMRF and FICA. Yeah. So I just want to go through those again. I put those in what I have thus far, but sometimes the numbers change as requests come in, so I want to look at those again. And then I'll also have revenue. Most of revenue is finished. I didn't cover it here. I want to go through and look again at the rents for this building, and then also kind of look at what some of the transfers are not in there. Things like farm fund. We historically counted on a farm fund transfer to help make the general fund budget balance. That's not in there yet. So I'll want to kind of talk through that theory and put something in for that too. Yes, for farm fund, that's on a Wednesday thing too, but we can talk through it now. The rent, the contract, the 3-year lease ends in October 31st. There's a new lease starting November 1. That'll have to be bid out again by the management committee. They'll do that. And I had Kevin give me some idea from his perspective, and he called some people knowledgeable about what he expected rents to do. And the people that he talked to told him to expect a 10 to 15% decrease in rent. So I did budget a 15% decrease, trying to take the most conservative approach. So that's an issue this year. I mean, when I look overall at where we're at, where the numbers have come in so far, it's going to be a tougher year than the last two. Just the sheriff's deputies increases, just their increases are $97,000. So how to cover an extra $100,000 when we don't have an extra $100,000 in revenue is going to be very difficult.
That's over 5%.
Yeah, I think the average, right. I did,
I think it's greater than 5% of the total budget. It says $100,000 payroll increase.
yeah, it is over 5%. It's about, yeah, right. And you're right, that is by contract.
Anything else for today?
Nothing else for today.
Anybody want to make a motion for that? I move we adjourn.